Hello, everybody. This is Scott Hudspeth with Agent Mastermind. Welcome to the call. So excited to be here with you guys. Got a special guest on the phone that I've got to know over the last couple weeks, and his name is John Parrott, who has 40 years of real estate investment industry experience. Graduated from Purdue University with a degree in building construction. John has been licensed as a Class A general contractor, real estate broker, and mortgage lender for over 30 years now. He founded and served as president of the national chain of real estate broker offices providing services to real estate investors. He also founded and operated one of the nation's largest mortgage banks, specializing in providing capital to real estate investors across the country. John hosted a national radio program in real estate investing. Additionally, he has been involved with the development of over 3,500 residential investment projects valued at over $350 million, and major commercial developments. John has owned and managed a large portfolio of rental properties. His current focus is serving as a co-founder and CEO of Bridgewell Capital, one of the leading lenders for real estate investors nationally. And John, I sincerely thank you for taking time out of your day, and welcome to the call, my friend.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to present a few new ideas to some of my fellow real estate professionals.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming you've got a screen that says 5 secrets of real estate wealth building on your computer there. Can you see that all right?
I absolutely do, and I do. And you know, when my friends and I have been together for the last couple of days at a mastermind, and one of the things we've been talking about is how many people have become very wealthy with real estate, and you're going to show us a couple of those secrets today, is how they may have used or are using real estate to build wealth.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'll go into. I'll just give you a quick background. I'm originally from a little farm town in Indiana. My dad was a country veterinarian, and he didn't believe in Wall Street, so he bought little rental houses around our farm town. So starting at 10, 11 years old, I would go over and show houses, fix air conditioners, and the various activities required for successful landlording. I literally have been in the business ever since, frankly, around 50 years. I've done just about everything you can do in the business, a whole lot of flips, and had a large portfolio of rental houses, also done a lot of real estate, commercial developing, and I'm spending a little bit more time commercial developing now, aside from being involved with Bridgewell Capital. But one of the things about Bridgewell Capital is we are private money driven, and I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of very successful real estate investors that have had cash out opportunities, and they tend to come back to companies like ours. They feel comfortable in real estate, and that's where they try to deploy some of their capital. And over the years, I saw a very common trend of the people that had amassed a lot of money, particularly in residential properties. Frankly, a lot of them were realtors, to be honest with you, and brokers. So I put together just this little summary of information that really just reflects what I've learned from these people, as well as myself. But I think to a greater extent, I've met some people that have put together unbelievable amounts of money with portfolio of rental houses, and I'm just kind of run through some of the principles of what they did. Of course, I'm with Bridgewell Capital, and I would tell everybody that we are much more about the success of our customers than anything else. And we provide capital in all different forms, commercial, residential, to real estate investors. Why build wealth in real estate? I think one of the first questions we ask, well, everybody at some point in time wants to be in that hammock is in different places. For some people, it's up in the mountain on a trout stream, and for other people, it's in the Caribbean. But you would like to think at some point, after 20, 30, or 40 years of the grind, that there would be a hammock for you somewhere. So I think this little presentation I'm doing today is about that hammock right there.
Love it.
Secret number one I'm going to go into is positive cash flow. And a lot of these things we're going to talk about are just as common as gravity, but just for some reason or another, people don't focus on them. But positive cash flow, to build wealth, you've got to generate income that exceeds your overhead. your cost of living. And I've met plenty of people that are out there working real hard and quite positive that they're going to build themselves a nice nest egg for retirement, but at the end of the day, they are spending everything that they're making, and that's easy to do in this world. So if that's your case, at the current time, you are not building wealth. You have got to be in a position where you start generating income over your cost of living to build wealth. So that's easy to say. How do you do that? Well, frankly, a lot of people that I've met that have built wealth have done it through passive income. Most often people generate additional income through passive investments. You see the rent sign, obviously. My dad being a country veterinarian, I remember going on vacation with him one time, and he said, I'm excited about going on vacation, but unfortunately the practice is not going to make any money. And I thought, well, how's that? And he said, well, because I make all my money with my hands. If my hands aren't in practice, I'm not making money. A good way to generate income, passive income in particular, over and above your expenses, is to do that with other people's hands. If you've got a quality investment home that somebody is renting from you, and they get up and go to work, not only are they making money for themselves, but their hands are working for you also. And I think to a certain extent, to build wealth, particularly through passive income, what we're talking about is getting other people working for you. Investment real estate, a wonderful way to build passive income, and I think it's one of the easiest ways to get yourself in that position. The old saying, I'm going to say, most people have certainly heard this, 90% of all millionaires in the United States are millionaires thanks to their ownership of investment real estate. And that's a common phrase for a good reason, because it's very true. And never underestimate the potential of being able to build some serious wealth with investment real estate. And again, a good percentage of the very successful residential investors that I've seen build wealth have been realtors, because they're in the perfect position to do that. Right. They see the properties come and go. They know the business. Frankly, they have the time. They know the neighborhoods. They understand property management. Really, it's just a perfect storm for them to be able to get in the middle of that. Secret 2, we're going to talk just a little bit about understanding how real estate investing profit is created. Obviously, the best way to get started is to know where you're going. I sit with a large number of different types of investors almost on a daily basis with the career that I have. And it's surprising when I ask the question, what are the 3 profit centers of real estate investing? So that exactly how you make in real estate. I think the easiest and certainly this commercial building is a sample of a use change. Kind of understand why so many commercial developers, because they get a lot of use changes just in one project. If you look at this project as an example, and I'm actually building something that this is not my site, but it almost could be, because I'm doing almost exactly this type of development on the west side of Orlando right now, on an old piece of agricultural ground that's actually right at the corner of a fairly major highway and the new Western Beltway that goes around Orlando, where they put in an exit. So if you look at that as an example, when we got property as agricultural, however, the future use plan was commercial because of the new highway. We went down to the county, put in an application, and that was an easy conversion of agriculture to commercial. That's a use change. We made money. We hired engineers and surveyors and environmentalists. We went and got approval for that. Therefore, the project was called what they called entitled. That was a use change. That's a profit center. We then went in and put the horizontal improvements in the property, the sewers and the power and the stormwater. That's a use change. Then obviously when you build your building and now you got shells you can rent to tenants, that's a use change. And then when the tenants go in and they put the tenant hold improvements in there and leasehold improvements and occupy the property, start So that's a use change. So you can see you got 4 or 5 use change packed into just a single project.
So let me ask you. So let me ask you this, John. So for those people listening on this call, as a real estate agent, say that they have real estate investors that would like to get involved in something like this, would you be somebody that they would call to get funding for something like this? Is that where kind of you would come in?
Absolutely. We
Okay.
fund just about every type of commercial property, but I would highly recommend taking small, successful steps to get to head down any journey. This is a pretty big step. I've been doing this for a good
Sure.
30 years.
Sure.
So this is certainly not, this is fraught with peril if you're not very, very skilled. So I wouldn't start here. I would start with something that's a much easier and lower risk use change, and there you see the classic flip. And that's about as straightforward and easy of a use change as you can get. Obviously, understanding what that use change is, I think is important. And really what you're doing, I'll go back, what you're doing is you're changing this deferred maintenance home into a home that is now FHA insurable that can get conventional financing. I think most people would agree it's very difficult to sell a handyman special to a owner-occupant. You can from time to time, but they mostly want a home that's move-in ready, and it is very difficult to finance that handyman special. So if you can take this property and move it into FHA insurable condition, so therefore you now have a much clearer vision, I think, of what you're doing when you get that project. I talk with people that are getting ready to do a flip. They're talking about the countertops and all the improvements they're going to make, and I don't hear mentioning a lot about the key components that create the FHA insurability of the property. So I would highly recommend to focus on when you're doing the flip, of course, FHA insurability.
So really quick, John. So if there's real estate agents on the call or loan officers on the call, you and I had a conversation before we started, and the 203K loan, I'm sure everybody on this call knows what that is, or maybe I've even been involved in one, and we know how difficult it is. And maybe we should bring you back on to talk about that because you're hearing rumors, and I guess it's coming true. I don't know when. Maybe it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever. But they're slowly doing away with the 203K. But regardless whether they do or don't, you're coming out with a product that would allow a real estate agent or mortgage investor to do business with you on some sort of type of loan like the 203K, but much easier. What you're talking about?
Well, yes, we actually have a full-blown a replacement for the 203K for investors now. That's a very popular, probably our most popular loan program, and that is where you can come in, buy a handyman special, and get all the money that you need to get the property in top condition, and then that loan will automatically modify into a perm with no additional cost. It's one loan, does it all. But we're now coming out with that same product for owner-occupants. So I'm going to go back just for a second. Frankly, the original real estate investor, and this is where I started, the first investor is the one that, and they buy a handyman special, and they put $25,000 in it, and they live in it for 3 months, and then the buddy comes over to a realtor and says, hey, I've seen homes in this neighborhood selling for $190,000, let's say. And they think about it, and they say, well, heck, I'm only in $160,000. So a light bulb goes off, and they all of a sudden figure out that they've done a use change on the property. This use change we're looking at here, and they've made some good money. They eventually sell it, take that cash, and pretty soon they're living in a house, then they're flipping houses or holding them as rentals, which we're going to look at just in the future. But keeping in mind that an owner-occupant can also be an investor, and I think anybody moving into home ownership, if you have the energy and the and little expertise and the enthusiasm to actually handle this project here, that would be a good place to start.
Okay.
Moving forward, cash flow, of course, is when anybody's doing buy and hold properties, everybody's basically only thinking cash flow is what I find. I just did a presentation for the Mr. Landlord convention, and I was surprised at the number of real estate investors with large portfolio of rentals that were really only focused on cash flow. They hadn't necessarily taken advantage of use change or appreciation with their investment strategy. But I'm gonna pitch something quite different because all three is what I've seen a common denominator of the people that have made a lot of money in this business. Cash flow, of course, is what I call predictable monthly income. I'm not going to spend much time on that. Everybody, I think, has a clear vision to that. I'm going to talk about appreciation for a minute. That is the sleeping giant of buy and hold properties. We've had an inflation rate of approximately 4.1% over the past 50 years. I don't know what most people think would happen in the future. Scott, what do you think in the next 20 years? Do you think it would be higher than 4.1, the same, or less?
I'm gonna guess higher, my friend.
I think most people look at various factors going on and they would say higher, but at the end of the day, 4.1, even that's a really strong number. Yeah. Now, if you look at flip versus hold, when you actually buy a quality investment property, which profit centers apply to each of those? And I think you would find out that go back when you do flip, you really only make the use change profit. You don't make the cash flow or the appreciation. But when you hold the property, now all of a sudden you profit from all three, whereas flip only profits from one. So I'm a proponent much stronger on hold than I am flip. I think most people are familiar with this gentleman. He had an old saying that I think is really great. Warren Buffett would always say, "My favorite holding period is forever." And he certainly has been very successful with that strategy. But I would second that opinion. Secret. I'm going to talk about cash flow for a little bit and equity increase over time. There's an old saying: landlords grow rich in their sleep. And people say, well, why is that true? Well, number one, when you're in a hold situation, rental incomes, I don't know if people have noticed much, but rents have gone way up in the last 5 years.
I've heard that.
Yeah. And they are projected to continue to rise at a pretty steep rate. There's just a lot more competition for rentals, and frankly, we're a little short on houses right now. Your costs remain relatively fixed. Your payments stay pretty. Insurance prices, HO, don't near as fast as rental. Have ever increasing cash flow. Number one, and then obviously number two, as your property value increases with that 4.1 or whatever it's going to be in, and you pay your loan balance down, you've got increasing equity. So literally in your sleep, you've got increasing cash flow, and in your sleep, you've got increasing equity. And that is pretty much the secret sauce as to how people have amassed so much money buying and holding real estate. Secret 4, of course, is target smart buys. And when I mentioned I was up at the National Landlord Convention, and what I noticed among even some of the seasoned investors is they were focusing on cash flow, and I don't consider that they had really made great buys. Everybody tends to want to buy the cheapest possible little 2-1 shack they can find because they think the cash flow is best. But that house doesn't tend to use change very well, and that house doesn't tend to appreciate very well. I much prefer the little higher-end house in upward transitional neighborhoods. How to identify which houses to buy? Well, obviously buy wholesale. You should be buying 65, 70 cents on the dollar, putting 10, 15, 20 cents in it. So when you finish the house, you're in it maybe 125, but you got a house worth 165. And guess what? It's going to rent like a 165, not the 125 you're in it, and it's going to appreciate like a 165, not the 125 you're in it. So you're getting cash flow and appreciation not only in the investment you have in the property or your financer, but you're also getting cash flow and appreciation on your profit. That's your use change profit that's sitting in the property. So buy wholesale if you're going to get in the middle of real estate investing. And again, this is that example of showing the rental value and the appreciation, not only on your costs but also on the use change. And by the way, at the end of this, if anybody wants a copy of these slides, I'd be happy to. You can just shoot a note to Scott or somebody. We can make this available.
There you go. Yeah. So what I'll have you do is just send it to me, and then we'll get it up with the recording. We'll put it right with it.
Yeah. Yep. So seven key features of property type that maximize all three profit centers that I found over time. I like single family. Obviously, I like detached much better than I like attached housing. I know you can say that duplex or that threeplex or the quad's going to cash flow, but at the end of the day, you can get higher quality tenants. You can keep them longer. They'll take better care of the property. I think whole properties are much better as detached, single-family, conforming zoning, of course, standard construction. Established subdivision is huge. It's very difficult to achieve the appreciation that you're looking for on that little house at the end of the dirt road. Obviously, I like the affordable price range. I call that, let's say, medium home price, $100,000 in your area. I think the perfect rental retail value in that neighborhood in that city probably be $150,000. And I would like to think that if you bought wholesale and fixed smart, it'd be in the house $125,000 when you put it on the market for rental. So about 20% back of your median home price is what I would call affordable. So you nice, consistent neighborhood. If you think about rentals for a minute, this is a little secret. If you buy an 1,800 square foot neighborhood, you'll note that your buy price and, frankly, your appraised values when you're finished are going to be based on the square footage. But the rental tends to be based on per house. Anybody's ever rented houses or property managed out there, I bet no one has ever asked you how much per square foot are you renting this house for. But of course, when you get them appraised in a sales situation, square foot's what you go by. So what I'm trying to tell you is that frankly, a house just a little smaller than the average is a pretty good way to go. If you were in an 1,800 square foot neighborhood, I would think it's 1,550 or 1,600 square foot house, because it's going to rent for the same price as that 1,800 in that same neighborhood, but you're going to buy it cheaper.
So going back to that slide there for a second. So you've had more success or saw more success with single family more than anything else.
Detached by far.
Detached, okay.
By far the getting home. It's where you can get your quality tenants. It's where you can get tenants to take care of the property. They stay longer. Just everything you might want to do to a property. If you say, what's easier to sell, attached or detached? Of course, detached. What's easier to rent? A detached. What's easier to keep it in detached? I'm just saying from my experience, I've seen a lot more success in detached homes in upward transitional neighborhoods than probably. Of course, all bets are off if you're going to build a 350-unit apartment complex.
Right.
So I'm not referring to that example. I'm referring to where you begin to do your wealth building in real estate investing. Mainly focus on attached versus everybody that has some real estate experience would agree that you're just not going to see that profit center. How often do you see those duplexes or threeplexes or fourplexes appreciate? They don't tend to appreciate much like the detached homes do.
Yeah.
Where to buy? Of course, I like metro areas. The homes that their value sometimes and also tend to appreciate much slower properties that are outside the loop. You're going to find that in better upward transitional neighborhoods, the nearer downtown you can be. And why? And I didn't make this principle up. This is a very common principle of real estate investing. But you'll see this outside circle puts pressure on the inside circle. which then puts pressure on the most inside circle for appreciation. So the closer you get to the center of this circle, the greater the appreciation. So if you just kind of keep that model, and obviously trying to maximize your three profit centers, and buying closer to the center of the city in upward transitional neighborhoods as you do it. Now I'm going to talk about a transitional neighborhood, and if you can find your A neighborhoods that are close to the center of the city, and then moving directly to A neighborhoods, if you can try to find properties that are the C plus neighborhoods in those outside areas, where those A neighborhoods are actually going to eventually grow into your C plus neighborhood. You're hoping you hold for 10 or 15 years, and when you bought, it was a C plus, and now when you are 10 or 15 years down the road, you're in a B plus neighborhood, or you could even be in an A plus neighborhood now. So for transitional neighborhoods, and they're small pockets. There's not, 50,000 homes in the transitional neighborhood. Little pockets, C plus neighborhood, find it tucked up against A neighborhood, where the A neighborhoods are growing, and particularly where you have natural barriers to growth, such as major highways. And in this little map, I think you can see here, you can eventually see how that B neighborhood is going to be absorbed by that A neighborhood, and that's going to push the B neighborhood over into the C plus neighborhood. Keeping in mind that when you buy in a C plus neighborhood tucked up next to an A neighborhood, those residents of your investment properties are going to shop and enjoy the amenities of that A neighborhood.
So I got a question coming in, John, from Carl. Thanks for asking this, and I was thinking the same thing. How do you find out about the transitional neighborhood and where it's going and how it's going there? Is there a test you can do, or how would you go about finding that out so you are getting in the right place for these transitional neighborhoods?
I'll tell you exactly. If you any city with a parachute and I landed in a rental car, I would drive, particularly if I could be something to do about the area, I would say drive me to a residential neighborhood as close to the center of the city as you can find. And everybody on this call probably immediately knows where that neighborhood is. And it might be 2 or 3 nice neighborhoods that are in your immediate downtown area somewhere. I would drive right to the center of, let's call it Parkwood. I would drive right to the center of Parkwood, and then I would start fanning out until I had just crossed over from A to maybe B, B minus, C plus. You're going to get to the edge of that A neighborhood, and you're going to start finding some B and some C plus properties. You just found then I'm going to look at geographical barriers. Which way is that A neighborhood likely to grow? Keeping in mind that city centers in America are very vibrant now. The trend used to be moving out to the suburbs. Now the trend is super strong in the other direction. So are the millennials and what I call the hipsters moving into the center, but even the baby boomers are moving back into the cities. So those A neighborhoods are going to come under a lot of pressure, and they're not making any more real estate downtown. I mean, what you got is what you got. So those A neighborhoods in those cities, in our cities, are going to be growing. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out which way is this neighborhood growing. And then when you find your C plus neighborhood, C plus houses in the direction, you've identified your transitional neighborhood.
And I've had several conversations with my friends where they say, on this side of the road it's this, and on this side of the road, oh my God, it's $100,000 less. Like it's kind of funny how that conversation comes up, and that way, depending on the circumstance, that'd probably be sort of what you're talking about here.
Well, it is. They're very real. I've seen major wealth built by people that have bought in these upward transitional neighborhoods. I think you got to put your future glasses on, and you got to say, okay, I'm not looking at this today. I'm looking at what does this look like 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And that if you look at this map I'm looking at, that AB plus neighborhood will look different 10 years from now. Those lines are going to be drawn in a different place. You want to buy where maybe if you're buying right on the edge of the B in the C plus neighborhood, and I think everybody would agree, I'm going to focus on that C plus neighborhood for a minute. If I go all the way down to the bottom point of that C plus neighborhood, you're going to pay the same price for a house there as you will tucked right up next to the B, that B circle. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree with that, yes.
Yeah, it's comparable sales. But that little bottom down there on that C plus stock into a D minus neighborhood one of these days.
Yep.
But if you look way up at the top of that C plus neighborhood, where it's up next to the B, and you see a river that's just to the right of it, you know that B neighborhood is going to take that portion of that C plus neighborhood over.
Got it.
So that's what I'm talking about. It's out, and because we got professional realtors on the line. You guys have MLS. This is a lot simpler than you might imagine, and you're going to be very surprised that even seasoned professionals in investing are not focused on this basic concept. You're going to be. This is a secret weapon for you here, if you understand what I'm saying. Income versus purchase cost, of course. So you got to be careful. Excuse me. You got to be careful that in it where the positive cash. So that's the other. So that's why you're over in that C plus neighborhood. You're going to have a hard time to say, well, why don't I just buy in the A neighborhood? Well, you know what? If you can find a can absolutely make a deal buy on, I would say yes, buy in the A neighborhood. But those far and few in between, and we can with owner ops to a great extent. So get over plus, but I think you're going to find your cash flow. But do run the math to make sure that you're going to have positive cash flows. Just that give them to wait that 10-year transition, let appreciation catch up.
Hey, John, real quick. You're breaking up just a little bit, so I don't know if you're moving or whatever, but you are breaking up just a little bit, so sorry about that. Here is a question. I have a 3-family investment property near Ashmont State. Should I hold on to this? Okay, so one is, where's Parkwood? I don't know if that's a neighborhood in your area that you just referred to. Maybe you guys are close. I don't know. And Nick was asking, is Parkwood close to you in Florida?
Whoop! You broke up on me there, Scott. I don't know if it's me or
it might be GoToWebinar. Yeah, it might be GoToWebinar. I apologize. Yeah, sorry about that. So, sorry about the cutting out, guys. We're fighting voice over IP and the internet and stuff like that. So some days are better than others. But
see, hazard online audio. Yeah.
All right, I lost you. Yeah, I lost you there a little bit there. We're losing. It's like I'm hearing every other word there, John.
All right.
You still there? Lost you, buddy. Yeah, and it maybe it's me. Let me just let me do one thing. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna log off my speaker and log onto the phone and see if that makes a difference.
All right. I'm wondering if you can hear me.
Yeah, that was better there. That's better there.
So you can hear me all right now?
Yeah. Yep, I can hear you good.
All right. Very good. Okay. Well, moving forward, you actually had a question from one of the
yeah, and I don't know Dorchester, Massachusetts. I mean, I don't know how to answer this. You would have to, it obviously takes a lot of research, but it says I have a 3-family investment property near Ashmont Station. Should I hold on to this or sell while it's higher now? Great. I mean, good question. I just don't know if you know the area, so.
Well, the old saying is real estate is local. So it really is almost, you really got to dig into each specific. In general, I would say hold. But I would hesitate to comment without knowing more, because real estate tends to be so local in nature, even within a particular city that, or even a neighborhood, as we just saw with that C+ example.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, moving forward, secret 5. Obviously, everybody's aware that successful real estate investors use leverage to maximize their returns, OPM or whatever you want to call it, other people's money, but that is how you're going to build your wealth. I love you. It takes money to make money, but not all of it has to be your money. Other people's money, of course. And this is an example. I don't want to lose you here, but I talk to people, and if you look over on the left, that have a rental home or two, and they've got it all cash, and that shows that individual with that 100% all cash house over there, and of course he's keeping all the profit because he doesn't have any cost of money. But if you move over to the houses on the right, you can see where people have used financing. With the same amount of money they've put in one rental house, they can own 4 houses. Now, when you use other people's money, of course, there is a cost to that. I've noted that's about 20% of your overall profitability of investment real estate. So I just show the example. Would you rather have 100% of one property or 80% of 4? And I think that demonstrates the use of leverage. I got to look at this graph for a minute to see what we're doing, but yeah, does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, my friend. Yeah, that goes back to the 80-20, I think, doesn't it?
Yep.
I mean, yeah. So
the 80-20. But if you're sitting in all cash in one rental home, I think you're going to find that you will make a lot more money if you had 4 properties and you use some leverage for those properties. I'll give you an example of wealth building on the principles we've talked about. And this shows somebody that's built themselves up to 10 houses. I'm going to assume you buy 1 house a year for 10 years, and you hold them for 20 years. So that means in 10 years you get 10 houses. At the end of 20 years you still got 10 houses. You just quit buying 10 years ago. And what you would have, based on these assumptions, that your initial property value is $150K, your monthly rental income is $1,250. I use national averages for taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and a 4.1% annual appreciation. And I think, Scott, you would agree that in your area, at least, if you had $150K initial value property, wouldn't you think $50 a month would be a very easy rental amount to achieve?
absolutely at 150. Yeah, I have quite a few rentals myself, and they're not quite that high, but yeah, absolutely at 150 market 3. Yeah, yes. Very much
150. In fact, I would think that 10, you'd typically say 150 would get you 1,500.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. So at the end of 20 years, you would have a net cash flow after expenses of $250,000 a year on those houses, and your equity would be over $1 million. Now, that's pretty astounding. If you're a realtor and you're working, and if you could just pick off one rental house a year for 10 years and hold them for 20 years, you will be a multimillionaire. And this doesn't take, this is just simple math. The only way those numbers would change is if you changed either the $150K, the $1,250 a month, averages for taxes, insurance, and maintenance, or your inflation number.
So here's a question for you, John. So here's a question. Do you have a rule of thumb regarding maximum percentage of monthly gross rent that should be devoted to debt services, principal and interest?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we're going to, if your total income is $1,000 gross rent, then we would want your PITI to be no more than $850. So 85% is what we look for.
Got it.
Just a good rule of thumb.
Okay.
So now I'm going to move this forward just for a couple more minutes because I know we're starting to press our time limit here. But talk about what Bridgewell Capital can do to help you with that. Just a quick note, Bridgewell, we are national lenders for real estate investors, federally licensed mortgage lenders, BBVA plus rated. We're the highest customer service rated company in our industry on Trustpilot. We've loaned currently over $250 million to real estate investors, so very well established, high service level provider of capital for investors. And we have a program that is called a fixed to rent program, which we've been talking about a little bit at the top of the hour. And it really is a loan. One loan does it all. It's a bridge loan during the fixed period, and then it turns into a rent perm, no new closing, and no modification fee. It's a free conversion from bridge to perm, and it works. It shows 3 easy steps. The first thing, of course, what you want to do is you want to buy wholesale, and we will fund 90% of your purchase price. And then you're going to rehab the property, and we will fund 90% of your rehab. So when you're doing that math of that home where you're going to maybe buy it for 100 and fix it for 25, assuming it's going to be worth 150, 160 when you're done, you would only need to put 12.5 down to buy that rental opportunity. We would do the balance of the funding. So you can see we're actually funding more than the purchase price of the property. And then you rent the property for 2 months successfully, and then that loan will modify into a 20-year fully amortizing perm, rates down in the 5%. Actually, this was done a few months ago. The rate now is, I think, closer to about 5.6. It floats depending on whenever you make your modification. And there you go. There's that hammock again. Just kind of bring it all back to where we started.
Cool.
If you want to ever end up in that hammock, Scott, I think you would agree, you don't end up there by accident. You actually gotta have a workable plan, and I think what I've laid out today for people that are already professionals in the real estate business, either mortgage professionals or professional realtors, this is a very, very workable plan, and I just wanted to make sure everybody knows the capital that you need is very readily available.
So let me ask you this. So, and you and I were talking about before we got started, and I'm going to have you have a conversation with my mortgage company. And I would highly recommend, if there's any mortgage professionals on the call, or if there's real estate agents on the call, if you want to bring this to your local referral partner, John can have a conversation with that because I'm going to set this up with my mortgage company to have a conversation about doing loans with Bridge Capital because of these couple programs, and that's how kind of the whole world works. Is we sell to different investors depending on the program. This, I think, would be a huge conversation piece for you. It would be a huge piece to talk to different people besides just single-family people. If you get one investor, that one investor might buy a home every month, or a home every other month, or a home maybe one a year for the next 5 years. And just think about if you had 10 investors.
Well, that's 50, that's a huge point.
That's a huge So, John,
we didn't really touch on that, but that's a great point. Repeat business, and you might and obviously we have great loan programs for people that are flipping. Also, the one I picked out today to talk about was our fixed to rent program, but we have fixed to flip in a number of different sizes and shapes to fit about any project. And if you're a realtor and you're not working with investors, that's something you should be looking into, because those people they're buying houses every day of the week. Yes. You'll find a guy, you might sell him 20 houses, and guess what? He's going to retail that house. You might well get the listing and the real estate commission on the back end of the deal too. So you're picking up a commission on one house twice.
Right. Somebody's asking, do your investors need good credit to get funding from Bridgewell Capital? I'm guessing there's minimum scores as an investor.
Well, I kind of kid. We like to see triple digits in the credit score at least.
All right.
If you
That's nice.
No, we typically bottom out for fix and flip at about 550.
Okay.
And then for the fixed to rent program starts at about $580.
Okay.
But I say about because these are guidelines, but we're mostly lending on the success of the project as opposed to the credit score. And frankly, most all of these investors are going to be buying through either an LLC or a land trust. I would highly recommend that they not buy rental homes into their personal name. I don't know anybody that that promotes doing that. So we're typically lending to the business entity as opposed to the individual, which takes a lot of emphasis off of the individual's credit score.
Sure. Hey, Carl's asking, does the fixed to rent have a prepayment penalty?
No.
Okay.
Oh wait, I lied. Yes, it does.
Okay.
That's why we have a different program for fixed to flip.
Okay.
We have quite a substantial number of different fixed to flip products. None of those have prepayment penalties. This particular program does have a prepayment penalty.
Okay, and was it like 3 years, or is it the life of the loan? What is it?
It is 3 years.
Okay.
It's a 3-2-1.
Okay. How do we get in touch with? How do people get in touch with John? Like, if you're an investor, or if you're a real estate agent, or if you're a mortgage professional, and getting set up with you to sell loans, to give you loans. Obviously, if their company's not set up with Bridgewell Capital, how do they get a hold of John? Do you want me to just put that? You want to put that? Do you want to give your phone number, email address? What's the best way? I don't want to bombard you.
Yes. Yes. Well, I'll give you a couple things right now. It's real easy. 866-500-4500. I'll give you that again.
866-500-4500. Okay.
500-4500, and 9 to 5 Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. You should be able to get a professional in our office on the line live.
Now, if they wanted to get set up with a company to sell loans to you, or broker loans to you, or a mortgage professional, how would that? Same number?
Yep. We have same. It's one number that comes in. Tell them that you were on a webinar with me today, and they'll get you pointed in the right direction. And then you can also get a hold of us, also very easy, at bridgewellcapital.com.
Bridgewellcapital.com. Okay.
Either one of those two. And we're happy to help you. And I will tell you that I probably spend 3/4 of my time consulting people in the industry. So you are welcome. I'm easy to get a hold of through that number or through the email. And if you have any questions or you'd like some advice, I'd be happy to help you.
Okay, and you're in quite a few states. What did you say, 45 states or 42 states or something like that?
Yeah, we're loaning 40 states right now, but and that's just because that's where we market. But I think there's about 47 states. If you're in one of the 7 states that we're not loaning in, that we would loan, and you got a solid deal, I think you could get that done with us.
Okay. Is it Canada? Are you doing anything in Canada?
We are not currently loaning in Canada, but I'd be interested to talk with somebody about that. That's a market we have looked at in the last year. We have future plans to go up there, but if I had somebody that was a very active mortgage originator and wanted to pipeline some loans to Bridgewell Capital, we'd be interested in talking with you. Excellent.
How about, so Darlene says, purchasing a home each year for 10 years, holding for 20. I have 2 homes now and I'm 51 years old. Any workarounds? Any suggestions on that one?
Well, yes, proceed. Go find a great wholesale deal in an upward transitional neighborhood. Fix it smart. Landlord it smart. And repeat, and you will be very, very pleased. And since we're talking about landlording smart, I'm a huge proponent of Mr. Landlord. I don't know Jeffrey Taylor out of Virginia Beach. He is absolutely the definitive educator in the art of landlording. He's got it down to a fine science. He has owned a couple hundred rentals himself for 30 years. He's been teaching landlording for 30 years, and he doesn't pay me a promotional fee. I don't mind telling you, but in fact, I just went to one of his boot camps as a refresher a while back. But if you're going to get involved with this, I would highly recommend jumping on his website and getting some education, because he can make your life a lot easier and make your business much more successful in landlording with the education that he has. So that's MrLandlord.com is how you find that.
That's awesome, dude. MrLandlord.com. All right.
Yeah.
Carl says, do you loan in Colorado?
Yes, we do.
All right.
Great state, and actually Denver is one of the top 3 or 4 cities over the next 36 months for appreciation in the United States. That market is on fire. We use a company called Local Market Monitor, which is probably the top residential research company in the country. They have great statistics on appreciation rates across the board, and Denver is one of the all-stars over the next 3 years. You can't miss there. If I lived in Denver, I'd buy every house I could get my hands on in an upward transitional neighborhood.
Denver's growing like crazy. How about Massachusetts, Louisiana?
Yes.
California.
Indianapolis. Yep, Indianapolis is a terrific town. Boston is very high on the list. California's got a whole bunch of cities that are going to see great appreciation. Frankly, across the entire United States, according to to this research group, which I think is probably the most respected in the industry, they're calling the next 36 months in the United States fantastic. Not that they aren't projecting, that we're going to see good things past that, but their research only goes out typically 36 months.
Phoenix, Arizona?
Phoenix is, again, one of the top appreciation markets. Frankly, anything that's bordering California, because you have a little displacement of people. So if you start south, Phoenix is a hot market. Vegas is a hot market. Reno is a very hot market. Portland and Seattle, because you're getting a lot of displacement from California into those cities, and all of those cities I just named are in the top 20 in the country for projected appreciation over the next 3 years.
Beautiful. And Nat is asking, does this work for first-time home buyers?
The program we talked about is for investors, but Bridgewell Capital has a program coming out. We're just in the final stages of fine-tuning our documents that will allow for a fixed-to-perm for owner-occupants.
Which is going to replace the 203K is what you're talking about, I think.
Well, it certainly is a comparable product to the 203K, with the exception that it's a far easier loan to originate and a far easier loan, in my opinion, to facilitate.
Cool.
I think the HUD 203K as most everyone would know, has some pretty solid challenges, both in the origination and the facilitation or the rehab periods. Obviously, we've been doing this for decades. We really know how to set it up to make it easy to get the loan done. In our business, we're used to originating in 10 days because these investors need to close quick. In the conventional world, 60 days is not uncommon. In our world, 20 days is forever. So we're going to model our owner-occ fixed-to-perm loan off of our investment program. So fast closings, easy closings, and better for the customers because it's going to be easy for them to facilitate their rehabs.
Great. Julie's got a great question here. I love it, Julie. Julie's like, living in South Florida, the real estate is highly priced. I have thought of purchasing out of state. Do you recommend that? I would love an excuse to travel to Denver frequently.
Well, again, the type of rental business, because it's a business, and the first thing, if you go to Mr. Landlord, he's going to tell you is this is a business. You need a business name. You need a business strategy. What's your special selling feature? What's different about your company? I focus on clean homes in the you know, in the Norwood area, or I focus on custom homes in the you know in the Brent Hill area. So it just got to be run like a business. One of the first questions we ask investors is, how far do you live from the investment property? And I typically say, if you can't get to your investment homes within 45 minutes, they're probably too far away. And then when you do start buying your properties, and I didn't touch on this, but I would implore you to keep them all tucked into one area. That's a much more efficient program than spreading them out all over multiple cities. However, if you have a good investment partner that is local, then yes, you could invest out of your area. But if you don't have a real trusted associate that's going to be working directly with you, running your business, these are difficult businesses to run remote. And and then the other thing I would say, I agree with you. I'm afraid the South Florida market is getting a little overpriced. I love Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, and Palm Beach, frankly, and not that I don't love South Florida, but there's a little bit of overpricing going on down there right now, and that wouldn't be my first pick for where I'd start buying.
Awesome. Hey, John, thank you so much for being here. We answered all the questions. He is in Florida, so if anybody has any questions, give John a call as far as details, what the borrower needs, what has to take place. If you're a mortgage professional or you want to get your mortgage professional signed up, have them call John or have them call that number that we gave you out there. And that number again is
I'll give it to you, 866 500 4500.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, John. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, truly, and look forward to getting back on with you at some point when we have our owner up. Bridge to Perm program on the road.
That'd be great. Thank you so much, sir, and we'll look forward to bringing you back later on. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
A lot of compliments about a great webinar, so appreciate you guys, and we will make sure, John, if you could email me the slides, that'd be greatly appreciated, and I will get this up with the recording tomorrow or by Friday.